Lego Star Wars, Lego Bionicle, Lego Technic, Lego Space, Lego Pirates, Lego Castle. Can you guess what all of these themes and so many more have in common? Well, they were all co-created, conceptualized, and brought to fruition by one man, Christian Faber, who I consider to be the Lego celebrity that nobody knows about. You see, Christian Faber worked with Lego for many years, and during his long tenure working with Lego as part of Advance Copenhagen, a digital advertising agency, he was behind the creation of so many iconic Lego themes that people love and recognize today. From handcrafting the Technic and Legoland logos to making Aquazone and being behind the launch of Lego Minecraft and Lego Star Wars and Lego Friends, and of course, most famously, co-creating a little theme known as Lego Bionicle. Christian Faber's work stretches throughout almost every single Lego theme for a pretty long period of time, even creating concept logos for themes like elves and Nexo as far into recent history. Now, I actually got a chance to go to Copenhagen, Denmark, where Faber is currently located, and sit down with him for a full in-depth interview of his involvement with Lego, how he got started, what was the process behind developing some of the many themes that we now know and love, and just get a little bit of inspiration from him in terms of what can you do to craft your own stories. And now, let's go ahead and jump into a full in-depth interview talking about non-licensed themes that Christian Faber worked on, and stay tuned because future parts of this will be coming focusing on licensed themes as well. Of course, a big thank you to Christian Faber for sitting down, enjoying doing this interview with me. I peppered him with tons of questions. But if you have more questions, don't worry, because I'm incredibly excited to announce that very soon we will be doing a live Ask Me Anything session with Christian Faber right here on the Duckbricks channel, and stay tuned for more announcements about that, as well as more projects we're working on together coming out soon. But now, without further ado, I'll turn it over to the man, the myth, the legend, Christian Faber himself.
Being in a company outside Lego, looking at Lego, gives you a certain role.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's reflected in all these materials you will see.
Absolutely.
Because I've done my most, creative work when I actually challenged the brief, when I went in and did something else that you would expect.
Yeah.
And I went up against, okay, this is how we normally do it, and we have done this design manual, and so and so and so. It's like, what if you did the opposite, or what if you did it in a different way?
Mm-hmm.
And what if you mixed in new things and so on? So I think that energy is what creativity is about to me, and that's what's kept the whole thing fresh.
Absolutely.
So I feel like the day I walked into Advance in '86, I feel the same today, actually. Both about creativity, about Lego, and about the possibilities you have out there. So as I said, I walked into to this agency, advertising agency in Copenhagen, Advance.
Right.
In '86.
1986 is when you started with Advance. Now, Advance, if you don't mind giving a brief overview, what was that company? What were they building? And kind of how were they involved with Lego at that time?
They were actually originally a part of Ted Bates, which was a big advertising company, international. And they had the Lego account there. It's a little group of people. But then actually Ted Bates got Fisher Price worldwide, and they had to split up to keep the account.
Yeah.
But Lego was so happy about the group of people, so they wanted them to form their own agency, actually.
Gotcha.
So they got their little agency, but with this big Lego client as their only client at that point.
Wow.
And I think Lego saw the opportunity to work with an agency externally that had all the internal knowledge and all the history as well. And that collaboration is still running now. I think it's 45 years, basically. So that is an amazing adventure on its own.
That's awesome. So at that time, was Advance primarily focusing on print, catalogs, magazines? Because I know that you were involved in almost every single Lego catalog and magazine advertisement that came out around that time. So what was that like coming into Advance where they already had this big client with Lego? And what was like the first thing that you worked on, if you can remember?
You know, it was like, I didn't even know they had Lego as a client.
Yeah.
So I just went in and I saw that there was like these minifigs on the table. And, and there was like, okay, do you have Lego? Yeah. But they also had some other clients.
Sure.
Because that was the idea, that you'd have Lego and then you should have impulse from other clients as well.
Right.
But pretty soon I went straight into working with some of the Lego lines. And I think it gave the community feel because everybody was working on this one client to do the assortment brochure and all other print material. Was that an echo I heard? Okay, sorry.
All good.
Sorry. So the print material, the assortment brochure, which it was the most important thing all year.
Yep.
And there was like a competition who could do the front page. So I remember having these walls of suggestions, and then it could be the young creatives doing an idea, but it could also be the senior. And it was chosen because of creativity, not because of rank,
right?
Which was really nice. And
that's really great.
That whole spirit just shaped the agency and made it one of the greatest places to be. And we had connections with all the Danish comic book people who drew comics and so on.
Yeah.
They came in, and it was just this amazing creative place to be. It was like one big club.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned that you had come in around 86 and kind of were working with them on print advertisements. So I kind of want to drill a bit down deeper into that sort of process, because I'm sure that people watching these videos and even people who grew up with Lego, one of the most important things kind of in my head and kind of going through these old leaflets and brochures are those catalogs, those beautiful advertisements, some of which Lego doesn't really do quite the same as they used to. I mean, I've got an example here of something that you actually worked on, where this one is actually some of the castle sets. We've got the Forest Men and the Black Knights with the Black Fortress. So I'm looking here and I'm seeing the Lego sets, but there's also this beautiful sort of kind of sculpted landscape around them. You've got a waterfall, you've got all the trees laid out, and this is a super interesting piece actually, because I can see that you've literally typed out the letters and stuck them on, and this would be what that catalog would look like. Can you talk me through a bit of the process of putting something like this together? And we even have one for Lego Town as well, and these are actually the original concepts. I mean, what are these?
Yeah, maybe it's like,
Yeah.
just like this is an original drawing of a train environment.
Wow.
So sometimes we would draw the whole thing. We would get the models, the new models in there. We would decide the angles we should show, and then how should the city be built up? Because we would have like a box up here, like you see, that would be like a news flash with text and so on. So we needed to work the whole thing around and get, there's a advertising for the train here, and get those small stories working. And of course, then we would get it approved, hopefully, and then we would go to the photographer, and then we would start building this whole set, and we would cut it out of sort of soft material. We would lay grass, we would plant trees, and do,
literally planting the Lego trees there.
and all the water in those pictures, that is raw glass. So we would get these big sheets of raw glass.
So this is glass right here that
and
I'm
it's
looking at.
it's underneath the whole set. So there's glass underneath, and I have some stories about that glass breaking actually and folding the whole set.
No, I'm sure you do.
But then we did those photos, and lighting that photo. This scene is about maybe 5 by 8 meters.
Yeah.
And the furthest mountains to get those distance and so on. So we have lamps all over the place, and getting those photos was normal. That was traditional photo on with the that you had to sort of develop and so on.
Incredible. And now I know that you had mentioned that since you joined, we have some original sketches here from Lego Pirates. Was Pirates the first thing that you worked on, or was it Town?
It was.
Do you
actually,
remember what you worked on first?
I remember the first one was the ships that actually float.
Wow.
And I remember doing this drawing, and I remember it being pulled back because it was too dramatic. I made this, and it's quite funny about when you look at the big sort of red threads, because this is an oil platform.
Oh yeah.
And I wasn't allowed to do any fire, so we just had reflection of fire, and then we have the fireboat, and we have the fisher boat sort of coming to the rescue, and then the police boat. Yeah, and this is really dramatic with dark water and so on.
Yeah.
It was never approved. But,
oh man.
But it sort of shaped the way, telling these stories that can be quite dramatic with one picture, getting the key visual right.
So this was the first piece that you worked on, and that's incredible. This is the original right here. But I really want to focus in on this one, because this was part of a collection of pieces that we found earlier in your archives, where you had sort of this is a small part of a much bigger scene where you had layers of the cave, you had different sets focused, you had a ship in the foreground. Was that sort of a catalog advertisement, or was that ever made into a much larger kind of store display?
As you can see here, these are for copying, bigger size. So these were cardboard displays for sales.
Wow.
And they were done in the most amazing ways. It was done like small theater pieces where you had cut-throughs and you could see different types of action, three-dimensional and so on. So it would highlight the different action on the sets. And the cool thing about Pirates, it was the first time you actually had minifigs that had special prints on. So we needed to get the story right and to sort of show all the action and the location.
Yep.
And then we had the big characters at the same time for big displays and so on. All this was hand-drawn.
Wow.
And sometimes we put hand-drawn drawings on the displays. And then that was in selling in, and then they were printed if they were ordered. So it was sort of to make the preview of all the campaign materials.
That is incredible. And I mean, sometimes it was hand-drawn, and sometimes they would recreate your drawings and take the photos.
Yeah.
And I guess that brings us to this space piece here, because obviously I know you did a lot of work on LEGO Space, from Blacktron and Space Police and Futuron and UFO, of course, and Insectoids, where it seemed like you were a little bit even more involved on those themes.
Exactly.
And we're getting to those.
Yeah.
But with something like this, I've seen catalogs that have images that look a lot like this. What was the thought process behind trying to figure out what's the best layout for kind of telling a space story? Because obviously you can ground yourselves in reality for the pirates and the city, but this is completely out there. How did you come up with those ideas?
Of course we got inspired by everything we saw, but at the same time it was sci-fi. It was looking at all the IPs that was out there and trying to make LEGO's own space come alive. So we were building, this structure is not part of the model.
No,
but it's sort of a space structure. And for the photo, this was 4 meters long to get the right perspective, and it was in the studio, and we had the backdrop was done with black, and then we made small holes in it and put light on the back, so we didn't have to do any 3D afterwards. This was painted with airbrush.
Practical.
It was painted with airbrush and put in the back, out of focus, and then the light was hitting it from the back. So we had everything in one picture actually.
Wow.
So it's sort of where we're trying to come back now with virtual production, where we're putting all in one screen. We did that at that point. Of course, it was still pictures, so it was not live, but we tried to do all the effects in shot, and all the models were there on the platform. So I guess this piece of Lego would have been like this.
Yep.
And then 2 meters like that in that direction.
That is incredible. I mean, it's almost like a lost art that LEGO doesn't really do advertisements like that anymore. We live in this age where there's a lot of 3D renders, and there's a lot of just kind of individual renders of sets. And I do feel like the cool part about doing advertisements like that was that as kids, you could see, wow, this is every single set of that line in one gigantic diorama, in one display. And I kind of wish myself that LEGO would do more stuff like it, because I feel like there is that tangible feeling of this is clearly a photograph, but it's the coolest photo that you've ever seen of all these sets.
That was what we aimed for. You should go on an adventure inside the picture.
Yeah.
So when you got the catalog, you would actually look at this as sort of play inspiration.
Absolutely.
And you would, of course, know that model, and that connects to this model, and then there's a little road there that leads to this.
Yeah.
So you get small stories, and it's actually the feeling I have when I'm in Legoland, when I'm in the mini world.
Yeah. In Miniland, you can see all the different stories and tales.
And you get also the mix. I love that mix when one theme is shifting into another, because then you have this. This is not supposed to happen, but it's actually quite creative.
Well, speaking of themes shifting into another, I know another theme that you had a lot of involvement in was time cruisers. And I also feel that on that line, there was almost a bit of a shift in the work you were doing for LEGO, where you kind of jumped in, you were doing these catalog spreads, you were doing a lot of these physical photography points. But there was a time where, one, you got more involved in the actual ideation of a theme, the storytelling, the early concepts, and mapping out the story Bibles. But I think on another front, there was actually also a point where you got involved in television advertisements and making more than just the catalogs. And I want to jump a little bit more into that. So I guess on the thread of these advertisements, can we dive a bit into when did Lego start to shift over? Because they've always had television ads for a while, even before you joined, but when did they start shifting over to these more story-driven TV ads, which kind of culminated in Bionicle? I would love to hear your side of the story.
It's funny you say dive, because
well,
if you go into this, Aquazone was the Aquazone was the full package.
Here, I'll just hold this here.
Aquazone was the full package for me. You know, I was a new appointed art director, and I got this theme. You know, it was straight out of the design center in Billund. So I came to them and saw these models, and right away, you know, everything clicked, because I've always been so inspired by underwater scenes. So having these yellow submarines, those amazing divers, the crystals, the octopus, you know, and then I had to do an environment for it, in the story, and then of course do the commercial, and try to build a story into that. So yeah, everything just merged there and made sense in every way.
That is incredible, because I distinctly remember this advertisement on kind of like on YouTube. I would watch it. It was an incredible ad. And you were telling me the other day a really cool story about how the bubbles that you see coming from the divers, how like there was a very intricate process of creating those bubbles. And it's the kind of detail that people, I think, easily might just overlook. But I'd love to hear, like, how did that impact your crafting of this entire scene, and kind of what work went into making that?
There's no 3D used in any of this. This is all in camera. So we had to fill the room with smoke to get the light shafts, and then we had like a big tube with mirrors on, turning around, so you get these shifting light shafts going on through the room. So we get the light coming down through the water, hitting the stuff or the divers and so on down here, and giving this.
Oh, you good?
Yeah, just try. You outside the picture, so I just moved the camera and the power bank.
No problem. Are we good to go? Okay.
Is it out? There's some cord hanging there. No, okay.
I put a power bank on. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but everything was done in shot. So we had to do all the effects. Of course, it was not possible to do the bubbles.
Of course.
But when we actually did the print version of this, I went into what's called paint box. It was called at that time. It was most advanced digital tool you could get. And I was thinking, okay, now I can get to paint the bubbles. But no, we don't do that. We can only do straight lines. Like this way or this way. So like, okay, I need bubbles, and I need bubbles coming out of the subs and everything, and effects and so on. So I had to go home and draw everything in pencil, and then reverse it so it became white, and then scan it in bitmap, and then got them to place it. So every time I was asking for bubbles, it was pointing back at me. So you can just go home and paint them.
Just paint it on.
So I mean, there was no secret brushes and so on.
And it's so cool seeing how your original concept image literally just directly translates over to this picture here. I mean, it's almost a one-to-one with the two sharks. You've got the aqua shark subs here. You have the two different submarines. You even have this little smaller set over here with the two crystals and the octopus. I mean, it's stunning how closely they were able to translate your drawing into the actual photography, and those are your bubbles right there on the photo, which is just so cool.
And this is what we call a toolbox, because we made it in layers, you know. So we could create all the different materials we needed, and already at that point it was really great. Like, all these parts were in the building system, so if we needed to do posters, we could rearrange it, and if we needed to do for the store, we could do it in a different way. So that was actually just suddenly getting digital toolbox in there already at a really early stage. And of course, there was no live rendering or anything at that point. It was sort of foreshadowing what would happen later on.
Exactly. And you brought this special National Geographic book along with us. Can you tell us a bit more about why you brought this along? And now we're talking about Aquazone, of course.
This is, just look at the coloring. This is Jacques Cousteau's story in National Geographic from '64.
Wow.
I remember this magazine from my grandparents. This was in their house. Every time I went there, I went to read this part, which is about living on the sea. And there's a great article there, along with the other stuff. But this was so inspiring, seeing these underwater, habitats and so on, and the divers and so on. Of course, also the film that Jacques Cousteau made.
Of course.
So it's just about, I think it's about connecting the dots, as somebody else has said a lot of times. You know, if you're collecting all these things you like, and then at a certain point you get a brief that fits everything, and this was the case, you know. So this basically made a recipe for how I love to see creativity.
Absolutely.
Because if you are collecting all the stuff you're seeing all the time, and then when you get the right task, you can apply these ideas and connect them in new ways.
That is amazing to hear, and thank you for telling that story about Aquazone. So you're saying that was kind of the first time they were really diving into these more experimental types of TV advertisements,
Yes,
where
definitely, yeah.
I remember in that commercial, you're almost like point of view of the sub, you're going in, you're seeing the base. When did that switch really happen, and I guess what are some of the most notable TV or visual advertisements you've done? I mean, I certainly can think of a few. There's that incredible one of the UFO and castle mashup where you've got your spaceship soaring through that warp tunnel, kind of looks like a green plant, and you also have a very infamous Lego, a big semi-truck one.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that was, you had once told me, was the biggest production you had done at that time for Lego. Why don't we hear a bit more about that? Because I know we have a great photo.
We took 3 lines of toys and put them in the same campaign, which was like, it was called the Integrator.
Yep.
And we went to US to shoot it. And I think you have the picture here.
Yeah.
It was like a massive effort, but also technically, because there was not much 3D there. So this city was built in the middle of the desert outside Las Vegas, and we had a big Peterbilt truck to sort of make the connection between, and this sounds, we had a Lego store that was sort of the connection point.
Yeah.
And one of the boxes falls off the shelf, and then this line of events starts where the bricks, first they go into pirate, they fly through the box into that world, and you see all things.
Yeah.
And then it's thrown out like the captain. He
throws his drink. I know this commercial. And then it goes into.
And then it goes straight into city, and it lands on the top of this truck, and the truck breaks because it's in front of this Lego town.
Yeah.
And the truck flies off and goes through this advertising sign, and then it goes into space. No, it goes back into the store, and then it goes into the cash register and into space.
Into space, into the blackness of the void.
And into some aliens that throws it again.
Yep.
And then back into the store and into the box, and then it lands on the floor. And this is the amount of time it takes from the box to drop off the shelf and land on the. So it's also a stretch of time.
It's a stretch of time.
Which is also like one of the favorite movies, of course, Back to the Future, when you're playing with time and dimensions. The whole thing just becomes so adventurous.
Now this is pretty crazy, because this is like, at best, a 5 to 10 second shot in the actual ad, where you have this giant truck that says Lego system on the side. It's driving through the desert, and it breaks in front of this city. You had some pretty wild stories of this shoot. Can you share even just one of those stories? Because I'd love for people to hear about that, because my mind was blown at how much effort went into making just a very, very simple, quick shot happen, but that's sometimes what you need to do.
It's a whole video on its own, I would say. There was a video crew behind the scenes filming the whole thing. Sadly, I think that's been lost.
But there's a story about a tornado or a hurricane or something? What happened?
Just the city was built from Billund. It was not glued. Because they thought we were going to go in the studio. They didn't know we were going to go live. So that was the thing, and we transported all this out to this place in the Coyote lake bed, it's called, next to Barstow. And we had the big truck, we had the big crew set up, and so on. And then we started building the city in the afternoon. And me and a Lego designer stayed there all night and building the city. Setting it up. And
I'm gonna put this up here while you're talking.
And I think it will glide probably. And then it was like really we were careful not to step in the wrong places where we were going to film and so on. And then this Peterbilt truck was next, and we were planned. Okay, we're staying here because we have to build and build. So the rest of the crew went home. There was a guard there called Skip. Took care of us, and he said, you might want to shield this a bit. And we didn't know what he was talking about.
Oh, man.
There was not a wind there at all. But
so it was you, a Lego designer, and Skip the guard. So it was the three of you with this Lego city built in the middle of the desert.
In the Peterbilt
and you were
truck.
sleeping in the truck.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And in the middle of the night, I woke up because I was lying like this in this truck. It's like I couldn't hear anything. It was like, why is this rocking?
Oh my
And then I went out and I looked out the window and I opened the door. It's like, and it was like, and we were shooting next day, and the time was so tight we couldn't.
Oh my goodness.
And then I look at that piece of cloth we had put in front of the city, which was quite big,
Yeah.
and was totally stretched out. And it was like, and we jumped into the sand there and we ran around, and we got the keys for these grip trucks and drove them around.
Oh my gosh.
And we had like the
So you formed a barricade around the Lego city to shield it from the wind.
and putting plates to sort of. We totally destroyed
That
the whole
is
surrounding.
wild.
Yeah, the whole surrounding. And when the crew came back next morning, it was like, "What have you done?" It was like,
Right, because you've messed with the set
Yeah.
now. So then the
and
trucks
they were
are all
like, "You
surrounding
should
it.
have been here," you know. And you know, the most surreal thing was like, there's a military base really close.
Yeah.
And we were building, and we had this strange sound. And really low flying helicopters came by
my
to see
goodness.
what we were doing.
It was the
And
UFOs.
I think they were passing like 15 meters above ground. And we were building with Lego.
They're like, what are
At
they
that
doing
point-
here?
At that point, I was like, I'm not going to experience anything
No.
as surreal as this.
Yeah.
Okay, next day we were shooting,
Yeah.
and there was a sand devil, as they call it,
Yeah.
a twister.
Yeah.
And then we could see it far away. And we were shooting, and we had cranes that were going to go through the city and so on. And then this twister just came, and it went straight through the set. And it tilted all the tallest buildings. And the buildings were not glued, so they just came apart in the sand. You know, imagine that. And we had to put them together again. And you know, Lego bricks, when they go above 40 degrees,
Yeah.
which it was.
Which,
So we-
yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure
had
it was
all
a
these.
lot hotter.
We had all these shields to hide them from the sun. But yeah, we had to collect the whole city again because
Wow.
it wasn't glued. So yeah,
Well, what a memorable shoot, and
Yeah.
this is one of the most memorable Lego advertisements. So I think it
yeah.
definitely, in some ways,
Yeah.
was worth it. Although that is an insane story and an insane amount of work
Yeah.
for going into
10 seconds.
10 seconds at best.
Yeah.
At best, and we'll roll it right now. Okay, so you've told us some incredible stories about your work on themes like Aquazone and space and all of these core original Lego themes, but I think a lot of people know you for pushing the boundaries of what it means to build with Lego and to tell stories with Lego. And obviously the big one is Bionicle, the elephant in the room, but we also have so many other themes that you worked on or had a part in, and I'd love to know a little bit more about your transition over from just working on the advertisements, like with Aquazone. Lego came to you and said, hey, we're doing this new divers line, can you make an ad for it? To actually getting involved in pitching ideas to Lego, coming up with the original story idea for Bionicle, and how did that all materialize?
yeah, it's it's such an amazing journey because, you know, one of the big things that happened where I was getting part of the design. I was doing a lot of logo work.
Yeah.
For all kinds of Lego lines, and I started to do package designs as well.
Right, because you
And-
did the Legoland logo, didn't you?
I did
It's a Legoland logo.
Yeah.
Didn't you do the Lego Technic logo as well?
as well. Yeah, I did. too.
Goodness.
So
What
it's-
logo didn't you do?
And they're still alive, you know. I was
Yeah.
just thinking about the Lego Universe logo that
That's
I did.
right.
I thought that would stand for years and years.
Oh.
But yeah, that's another story.
Oh yeah.
No, but the whole design part of it, I got really into working together with Billund, doing designs for packaging and
Okay.
logos and all these things. And that way I got into Lego Technics, Lego Technic, and doing that whole new design style.
Right.
And it started sort of to change that I also got other roles. I became sort of more almost like in-house designing stuff and
Yeah.
being part of groups looking at new stuff and getting involved in that. And I think the whole experience with Lego Technic sort of pulled in another direction, because I got a phone call, which is surreal to think about. We've been pushing Lego to do collaborations for years and years. Couldn't it be fun to do tell these stories that we see on movies, and then having the minifigs be...
Because this was before really any licensed product. Obviously, Lego did the wooden toy of Pluto from Disney back in the early days, but with the brick, nothing was licensed until, 1999.
Yeah, exactly. And we were looking at all these IPs that was out there, but Lego was like, no, we're not doing any of that. We're not doing any of that. Then I got a phone call, and it was like, I'm going to try to repeat what was said. Like, have you any plans next week on Tuesday? Because there is a meeting in San Francisco with Lucas at Skywalker Ranch.
Oh my goodness!
And we would like you to be part of that meeting. So it's like, okay, I'll just check my calendar if I'm available.
And if you did have something, I mean, that's the kind of meeting where you can't say no.
No.
And I know my friend Jonathan, Mini Superheroes Today, is going to be doing a deep dive with you on the Lego Star Wars journey. So check that out on his channel if you want to see that. I'm sure these interviews are coming out at around the same time.
Yes.
But just to kind of summarize, you played a pivotal role in creating Lego Star Wars with the box art and the logo, the original one. I mean, we've got one of the original sketches here, which is insane to me that just sitting around your office, there are just these original sketches of the Star Wars logo. The actual one is around here somewhere. I swear I didn't lose it. It's around.
We'll find it.
We'll find it.
We have a
It's
scan.
definitely not in my collection. I wish.
We have a scan of it.
Yes, we do have a scan. But you played a big part in crafting the Lego Star Wars brand, and that was obviously before Bionicle and before all of this stuff. So how did that experience help you grow and kind of build yourself literally in the Lego group?
It was totally amazing to see when you take great storytelling and merge it with great building system.
Yeah.
And in some way, the idea grew about, if you have a building system with bricks, you could also have a building system with story.
Yeah.
So imagine you're collecting all these bricks, all these parts that you can build together to anything, but you could also collect story bricks, parts that you could put together to form any story. And the more you have, the greater story you have. That was what I experienced with Star Wars, and of course this modularity was
If you can give me one
Yes, of
second.
course.
Apologies.
That's okay.
Okay, cool.
So the modularity of having great stories, but being able to sort of use it as almost like elastic to build your own universe.
Right.
So actually, and we told Lucas that this would probably make the kids reshape Star Wars in some way, build new kinds of models, build alternative models, and that was actually the force. We said the force of creativity will come in there, and that's been the road from there on.
It's been a constant throughput.
Yeah.
So obviously Lego saw the power of creating toys based on these rich stories, these rich universes, this lore. At what point did they actually come to you with, hey, we want to do an original story-based theme? How did all that come together? And I know there's probably some prelude to this, and you've talked about this a lot online with Cybots and how that was originating as a new building system, and then of course with Throwbots and Slicers. If you could talk about the early days, even before Bionicle was conceptualized, what was going through your head when you were trying to create the next Star Wars, really the next big story-based IP for Lego?
Let's just say this is another mix of events and so on, because being part of the Lego Technic group, we got this new product that was called Craze Products, and it was made out of with ball joints and so on. So
what was it called?
Craze.
Craze.
Yeah, to make a craze, create a craze that would be like that would be on the forefront of the store, that would be taken to the schoolyard. Like it would be something that the kids would talk about and they would collect and so on. We were looking at all these other brands doing stuff that was getting popular.
Yeah.
So Lego would do these products that would come up one year and then be a big thing, and then leave again, and then the next one would come next year.
Yeah, the next fads.
And Lego Technic was chosen to do this. So then the first prototypes of the slicer / robots.
Yeah.
Throwbots was coming.
Right. And we've got some of the concept logos you're working on here with the Throwbots logos here, which is super cool to see.
And of course, Slicer was European and the rest of the world, and Throwbots was US. So, and and they had functions.
Yep.
They were compact. They could be bought with pocket money. They could be given as gifts. Remember that they actually launched in January, which was totally impossible. You couldn't launch anything in January normally. So Lego had that as just try that.
Just try it.
Yeah, and it sold really well because it was like people, the kids who got like Christmas gifts and they returned them.
Yeah.
And they actually bought this new stuff.
Or Christmas money for kids going to the stores with all this money now.
It opened a totally new market that was unused before. And and we put this, as we call it, pizza planet on the back.
Yeah.
Which was like the whole story in one picture, where you see all these different zones of the planet. And the kids loved them. They started telling stories about this.
Yeah.
And we introduced the different elements. Yeah, that's actually a prototype.
That's right.
It was a really big thing because okay, how do we color code them?
Yep.
We give them their own environment.
Yep.
So we introduce the elements which you see here.
Yeah.
All the different elements, and you have a series you can collect. And at the same time, we use the discs to tell the stories. So there are almost like a comic that you can collect.
That's right.
But you can also use the disc for activity and throwing, and this is actually a collection box that they can land in, so you can target practice there. And then of course there's this whole universe that was developed around these machines or whatever it was. It was a really small lore, but it has sort of big impact. This is a prototype.
And this
glued together.
It's fascinating because this is not what the official box eventually looked like, but this is a prototype that you have in your archive, in your vault. And you can see it's like painted, it's kind of hand sculpted. I want to be super careful
it's printed
about this.
in. They had 3D printers at that point.
Right.
So you can see all the print lines, and they had pretty advanced.
Yeah, and this is just
And
incredible.
there's a brochure in there.
Yeah, it's honestly a piece of history to see something like this.
Yeah, it's also like the smart thing sitting in the belt, so you could carry it to the school.
Yeah. So when you were crafting something like this, obviously you said it was designed to be a one and done theme.
Yeah.
Because of the success of Throwbots and because kids really latched onto this ball joint mechanism, to this multicolored planet, is that what caused them to put a little bit more creative energy, a little bit more budget into something like Bionicle? Or were they always planning on going forward?
Because then the next year we tried to do, okay, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
And we just nailed that thing with the character.
Yeah.
And then we got this project called Robo Riders.
Right.
It was like, okay, and now you're starting to do like a motorbike with the character on. Well, it's a pretty radical thought, but
sure.
But we were sort of trying to go in a story direction. Suddenly we had this really strange blend of man-machine or whatever it's called, and we did all the decorations, and of course, and we did these worlds they were driving around in.
And is that your artwork for the worlds? And was it your artwork for the wheels as well?
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my goodness,
and the wheels were actually molded.
Yeah.
So they were like molded shapes for the wheels. And it's just one of my sort of favorite thing. You're actually shooting off the front wheel.
Yep.
Which is pretty bad when you have to ride further on.
Right.
So I was like you're amputating your bike with the function, which is sort of then you get a new wheel. But yeah, we tried to explain it by this was an energy boost.
An energy boost, yeah. So can you talk to me a little bit about, I see there's a prototype canister here that's a lot smaller than the official one.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind, oh my goodness, and the prototype parts in there. What was the idea behind the design process of kind of scaling this up? Because this almost looks like a Coke can or kind of like a soda can. And how did that whole ideation process work?
It was really out there because we had these products that needed to be close to a new market. They could be on the gas station. They could be in a convenience store. Right. They could be in the mall, and so they would be shaped in this size, which is the same as a can of soda.
Wow.
So they could go into the same type of machines, And then maybe you should show what the
Oh yes,
basic
that's actually
concept was here.
super perfect. I discovered this really interesting concept the other day.
Yeah.
And this is a concept for a Slicers, Throwbots, and I guess would eventually be also Roboriders vending machine. Now, Lego does do vending machines now. Unfortunately, they don't quite look like this, and obviously they don't carry this product, but what was the idea behind this?
Yeah, it was the convenience of buying Lego in a new way, maybe in a gas station or in a, anywhere.
Yeah.
And you could get this quick product that you could take home, or you could maybe even build it in the car when you were traveling and so on. This would be in the airport, it would be in the train station and so on. You could get a little piece of Lego there. So it was really trying to go into new marketplaces and so on. I guess maybe also inspired by actually Japan, because there was a design department there, and they had vending machines for everything. So that was an inspiration there from Japan, I think. And this is just to show 3 different layouts.
Yep.
This is a Lego Technic layout using that design. Then it's a pure slicer location where it's like a
I like this one with the giant figure on the top.
And the price is pretty...
Very prominent and sadly not something that we would see today. $3.99 for a full figure, I wish.
But I guess that would be when the size was this size.
True.
So yeah, they doubled the size of the can and they doubled the price, I guess.
Yeah.
And this is then the whole building system with ball joints and so on in one big sort of show off. Of course, this would be colored and so on, but it was sort of to give the general impression of how the vending machine would work. But the whole idea about having a cool piece of packaging, and that the packaging actually became part of the toy, because you know what this is actually a wheel.
Oh, that was sealed. Okay, we're gonna pretend I didn't just do that. Oh no. Anyways, carrying on.
Whoops. But this is for Technic studs. So this actually becomes the wheel if you build an alternative model. So having the canister to actually be, you can have you can keep your model in there, but you can also use part of it as a product. And that really went into the next ideas as well.
Exactly. Well, speaking of the next ideas, I think it's time that we pivot over to, of course, Bionicle. Now, this is a story that has been told a lot of times, but I would love to hear you recap the whole idea behind where did Bionicle come from? How did was it you pitching it to Lego? Was it Lego asking you what the next construction theme was? How did that process work? And really, I know this is a very long story, but in as succinct as possible, how did Bionicle even start? Like, where did that come from?
Let's just say it's a combination of so many different things in the right time at the right point. And it's the ability to do the right amount of creativity in the right point. I think that is proven there, because I will mention now this. We had the slicer, the Roboriders, so we knew this product was popular. We had actually in TV we had this Survivor was coming out, where you are going on an island and you're getting voted off and you're trying to survive and so on. That together with what about the storytelling, because we couldn't see, after Roboriders, should we then do another sort of strange blend story of a machine, whatever, and then why not try this third year to do something as if it was a big story, as if it was a movie on the size of Star Wars and so on. So we just pretended to say, what if this was sort of the biggest Lego thing ever?
Wait, so was it always intended to just be like a single year product?
That was what we said to Lego. Now you changed the game.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be 1 year.
Yeah.
Let's go for 3 years.
Okay.
Because building this brand every year and then throwing it away, that's really bad.
Yeah.
Because people are just getting into the story.
Exactly.
So let's try to say, now we break the mold.
Well, and that's fascinating, because I feel like that laid sort of a bit of the groundwork for how Lego approaches their original themes now. And I know that shifts a little bit, but recently they've been planning original themes with 3-year runs.
Yeah.
Ninjago had a 3-year run, Nexo Knights, Shima, even Hidden Side to an extent. Lego Elves started as 3 years, but then obviously if things get popular, they decide to extend it. But it's really interesting because that methodology seemed to have been first applied to Bionicle, where it was 01, 02, and 03, and that was the first chapter of the story.
Yeah.
And obviously the rest is history, and it was doing so good you decided to do more. But it's fascinating how you almost were the one who came up with that sort of Lego Big Bang approach to themes.
It's almost like a coincidence. At the same time,
Yeah.
it's like the beauty of things fitting into the system, because we called it B4.
Yeah.
That was one of the names.
Yep.
And that was interpreted as Book 4, which means that,
yeah.
that's almost like Star Wars. You're making Book 4 before you make Book 1 and
Yep.
so on. So, okay, this must be a big legend with lots of books.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even, it was actually a name suggestion, because what about these robots that we were presented with? And now we come into another thing from the design department. They have been working with the ball joints, trying to do characters again.
Yep.
Of course, the success of Slicer,
Yep.
we would take that into a next place.
Absolutely.
And we had some talks about, what if this island theme could be perfect and so on? What if that was native robots? What if we went sort of back in evolution, but it was robotic? And then we got these boneheads from Voodoo Island.
Yes, the boneheads from Voodoo Island. And I know that really the story behind that was that kids didn't really quite like the heads popping off, and
yeah.
that's why you shifted it to masks.
Yeah.
And I also know that obviously there was a very personal idea behind Bionicle for you as well when you were, if I remember correctly, you were battling
Yeah.
illness and kind
Yeah.
of saw this as, well, I think we have the first original sketch somewhere here, but you saw almost yourself as the big robot, right?
Yeah, but that's part of the equation as well,
Yeah.
because the story about my illness that was 10 years before that.
Yeah.
I started eating these capsules,
Yeah.
medicine for a brain tumor, and then that lasted for 10 years.
Wow.
And when I saw this canister, it was like, okay, this looks like the pills I've been eating. It's a bit bigger, but
A little bigger, yeah.
but what if the stuff you're eating as a medicine actually goes into your body and has to find its way to the place where this illness is? So
Yeah.
so what if this was some kind of medicine that had to find its way to cure an illness on a that must be a really big character lying underneath ground. If this is the pill, okay, what if this is a giant robot and these small robots are actually recur units? It's actually medicine that's trying to find the right place to be heroes. And that's, what if the medicine doesn't know it's a small molecule thing? What if
It just knows it has to fight the bad
what
guys.
if this pill thinks it's a hero that needs to rule the world and do good? And so that whole thing that emerged there, and then of course the pills sort of coming to the beach and trying to find out, how do we get into this body? And they didn't even realize they were on the face of their target.
And is that where you came
Yeah.
up with this idea? Because I think this is probably the original first sketch of what the island looked like. Obviously, now we know the island of Matanui is the face of the robot. And it's a little bit more vague in the final version because that was actually quite a hidden twist. Here it's very obviously
We're trying
a face.
not to give it away. This looks a bit more like, actually, if you look at the voodoo heads,
Yes.
the logo there, it's actually also, it looked like an island in some way.
Yeah.
And I can go straight back to the inspiration from this skull on the pirates.
Yes.
Did you have that drawing?
I do have that right here. This is one of your original Lego
because
pirate sketches.
This is like a rock formation that with the cave and so on being the mouth, and that whole thing about that the landscape mimics something that's either bigger or smaller. I think that connection makes it really inspirational, and suddenly these looks like teeth in a huge mouth. And I think playing is also playing with size, playing with time, and stretching things. So placing the heroes as tiny, small molecules on a beach that has to go and save a giant robot, or maybe the robot is not giant. It's just the heroes that are small.
The heroes that are small, yeah.
So the whole scale of time and size, it's also a playable thing. And I think that all that came together, and we did a presentation. and I think we had many names. We had like, of course, the voodoo heads and so on,
Yes.
and that left because the test just went totally bad.
Yeah.
The kids didn't want these characters to lose the head.
Yeah.
So then the mask idea came in at the same time, because what better tool would be that you find a mask and it gives you a new identity, it gives you a new skill.
And that has that tribal identity as well, where you
Fits
have this
perfectly,
very,
yeah.
I mean, it fit the setting.
And I remember having that meeting where they had this, Lego had this really bad test. That actually the product was almost like doomed there.
Oh my goodness.
And then coming with this idea, and it's like the whole thing just switched
around.
180
It's not
degrees.
heads, it's masks.
And
that
people just
plays
like
in.
ding, 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 ding. All the lamps just went green.
Wow.
And they did test of that. And when the product came back, detachable, you had the collectible in the
Yep.
mask. Wow. And
Genius,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was just so lucky that all these things mixed up in the right time at the right place. Yeah.
That is incredible. Well, obviously Bionicle went on to have such a big legacy, and we could have this whole interview be just about Bionicle and your
Definitely, yeah.
influence on it. But I would really love to hear a little bit about kind of how that success propelled you to be able to do even more with Lego. And over here I have this very special disc here that I had never seen this before.
No.
I don't even know if there are images online of this other than what I've posted in the past. But this was representing the success of sales of Slicers, was it?
It was, I think, I'm not quite sure, but it was definitely a goal of a target of sales in the Lego Technic setup.
Yeah.
So they made this special slicer disc,
Wow.
sort of celebrating that they had reached this
certain goal.
gigantic goal.
That's incredible.
And Lego Technic is that whole mix of reality where
Yeah.
you have all the gears, and I think the original Bionicle that had the gears inside and it had the
Yes.
functions. So you get the Lego Technic.
Exactly.
Okay, you actually build something that works, and you can make the arm do what it should.
Yeah.
And also the creatures that were there, they could be flying and so on. You can actually activate this and seeing the Technic gears work at the same time, and then putting that on top of a story.
Yep.
So I think in some way mixing reality with fantasy in a really sort of scientific way, I think that really spurred a lot of ideas afterwards. Also how to build
Exactly.
stories. So it has some kind of reality in there. It's not magic becomes tangible. Yeah.
Precisely. And I mean, it's honestly really impressive, the legacy that you've left on Lego, because you had that vintage era with Aquazone, with Space, with Pirates, with Adventures, which you didn't even really touch on. But then you have Bionicle and Slicers, and I know you worked on Rock Raiders as well. That was kind of another theme that you helped develop. And even going into the future, it's fascinating seeing just how many themes you were involved in. I can think of Lego Elves, even some of the big launch of Lego Friends. That was kind of you coming up with a lot of the ideas there. Lego Scala, Snap. Nexo Knights, you did some of the early logos, came up with the original concepts. Hero Factory, of course. But one big one that I wanted to also touch on was Lego Racers. Now, I was digging through your documents, and I came across this file among many files.
Yeah.
And this is just one of many, but this details a pretty seriously involved story behind Lego Racers, where you have all of these sketches, but there was also another document in there that dived deep into who the characters were, names of the characters, bios of the characters. What was it like working on Lego Racers and trying to actually put a story into Lego Racers, with this being kind of a central figure here with drone racers?
He's like Caesar, the clouds, they're forming this laurel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, doing the Bionicle, that whole thing about storytelling.
Yeah.
Remember the Racers team? I was still doing Lego Technic.
Right.
And I had that meeting where I was like, it could be really cool to have something like that for Racers. It's like, okay. So it was like change of scene, and now we're in the modern times. We're not in Bionicle on an island. So could we do a theme that had just as much lore and story, but just on a Racers setup?
Completely different setting, completely different
So
characters.
we just moved a bit into the future, and the setup is that you're not allowed to drive a car in the real world. Only place you're allowed to sit behind the wheel is in the drome. So this is where you go to witness sort of real driving, and the drome is sort of it's a multi stage where the race courses are changed all the time, so it's you're constantly challenged in every way. And suddenly the Formula One track turns into a mountain track and goes underwater or whatever. And there, it's sort of a spectator setup. So there's a city there where you can live, and then the races goes on, almost like in Singapore, or Monaco and so on. And then you have the jungle where you can live in tents and so on. And on one level, and then there's racing in through the rivers of the jungle and so on. So you'll be able to live in a theme park with racing all around. And then of course there's all the battles between the different teams and between the different brands of cars and so on. And there's one big mogul behind the whole thing, Dromulus.
Dromulus, right. So Lego Racers is kind of fascinating to me because obviously people remember Bionicle for the story and all the story material Lego put out, but I'm seeing almost similar, even more amounts of story material being made for racers. Digging through your archives, I found character bios, there was a villain, there were stories mapped out, there were character plots and arcs, and everyone had their own signature look and feel and race car. But we never really got to see that eventually in the Lego theme. I think there was a Legoland 4D movie that covered a little bit of it, and then there were some drawings on the back of the instructions of what the drone looked like, maybe a comic here and there, a very short comic, but we never really got to see the actual plot of the story play out. Like, I don't even remember, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't remember seeing Dromulus really ever, that much at least.
I think actually he was hinted in the 4D movie. You saw him from the back, like in the silhouette and so on. He was like this evil.
We have this really special disc here. This looks like it was, for promotion only, not for sale. So this is like a sample disc with Universal Music coming in, and not a ton of people know about this, but in 2001, you actually had sort of a Bionicle album, and there were a couple of different artists on it. Can you talk about the process of actually making the Bionicle album? And this was even before CryoShell. This was just Universal Music pulling it together.
It was sort of, we wanted to have this partnership. We wanted to come out as a broad IP. So having a musical presence as well with a big company would be perfect. And I think Universal Music, we did this homepage for Universal Music. But there was this really tribal. There was this sort of island sounds where you're using like seashells and everything, and like stone music, and you are using wood, like to do these sounds, and it just fit perfectly with the Bionicle sort of look and feel. So I think the first sound of Bionicle was really like seashells, and it was like the what's it called, this. You
the
get
conch
this
shells and
this deep sound. Exactly, and you get the stones sort of hitting each other. And,
right.
That whole thing just fit perfectly with this island mood of and this mysterious vibe of Bionicle, I think.
Right.
And of course also the Matoran, their whole sort of their small villages and so on. You could get this feeling of them being natives or living on the island, and
it's fascinating,
and having this music around.
So how did that collaboration work between Lego and Universal Music at so early of a stage when really nothing like it had been done with Lego?
I think they were thinking about doing this special package where they would display different types of story. They would have this musical web page, and then they would have this this sort of collaboration started. I remember doing a logo where I combined the Universal with Lego in sort of two circles meeting and so on.
Interesting.
Yeah, and of course that collaboration went went into becoming quite iconic because it was also Lego stepping into a new market.
Yeah.
They were working with new partners that actually wanted to step in there. Like
exactly.
The list is long. You can say, of course, McDonald's, Nike, Colgate, Scholastic. And it goes on and on with big brands that are suddenly looking at Bionicle as really attractive. And this gives the total broad, sort of the broad media. And actually that Lego has to get used to people using their IPs to bring out story into new areas. That was something new to learn. And the music was also part of that, basically.
That makes sense. Well, speaking of the music and those cross collaborations, How did you build that collaboration between Bionicle and McDonald's? Because that's another big one that, I mean, got a lot of people into Bionicle, was getting something like this in their Happy Meal toys. Also insane to see the seal. How did that work out of having McDonald's do this Lego Happy Meal promotion around Bionicle? Because they had been doing Lego gifts and Happy Meals before, but this was a completely different step compared to what they had done.
It was really a perfect match because you could get a full character in your meal.
Yeah.
That actually has a function and everything. So you were actually building with real Lego. And on other cases we had done, replicate Lego for McDonald's meals and so on, which is really sort of, that's not that good when you actually have a toy.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot of issues with mixing toys and food, which later on made actually the collaboration sort of disappear.
Right, because nowadays they only do it for maybe the Lego movies, and you only get cups or little big plastic things. You never get buildable toys
because
anymore.
all the small parts mixed with food, that just went totally out of that was out of the question, but not at this point.
Right.
And it was a perfect mix because you could sit and build while you would really get a full sort of experience of the Lego feel through and of course Bionicle got a big break on that.
Yeah.
Because it was out in so many Happy Meals and it almost became a craze on its own to get those. Yeah. And
that's amazing.
And of course we did a small animation. It was actually the first Bionicle animation ever.
And I think you showed that to me yesterday. I can confirm that is not online anywhere.
No.
Is that something we're allowed to share, or is that something for the future that you think we should keep in the vault for now?
Let's just say that it's first time we see Tahu on the beach with his fire sword, and he writes something in the sand.
Yep.
I'm not sure we're gonna show this, but this is just a small teaser.
Well, maybe one day that will be released from the vault, but that was so cool how that's actually what you used to convince McDonald's to hop on board with Bionicle, was just that animation.
I think they said, okay, this storytelling can show our brand in a totally new way.
Yeah.
So they were on board because of that visual small clip. Yeah.
And did you produce that animation with Advance?
We were actually, we were in a really good collaboration with Ghost, and that was a new company just starting up in Copenhagen, and that was actually 3 Lego employees from Lego Darwin.
Oh yeah.
That decided to go to Copenhagen and make their own film company.
And Lego Darwin, that was kind of, what was that, their test lab? It's kind of what they call Lego Futura.
They tried to do the brick in digital. That was like, they tried to digitize the whole brick.
Fascinating.
And we were as early as 99.
Wow.
So they tried to sort of say, this is the way to be, and they did a whole department in Billund where 3D bricks was made. Actually, that's where the rubber duck, the CD-ROM, the first CD-ROM with the yellow submarine. There you have another tie-in.
Oh yeah.
And
it's all connected.
It was a full CD-ROM with the 3D animated Lego Technic characters and parts and so on in an underwater environment.
Right, the underwater Lego Technic submarine.
And that was done by Lego Darwin.
Yeah. And we've got some of those Technic CDs here.
Yeah, because we went into doing we did actually the assortment brochure in a digital version, and it's quite funny because we did a 3D helmet like VR.
There's a VR helmet in 1997 where you were playing around with that. I cannot believe you were trying to get that off the ground in 97.
When you put it when you put it into the screen, it looks like the helmet is on the table.
Yeah.
And then it flies up and goes on your head, and then you see the screen and you can sort of control it. And you can look inside this Technic facility where you have all the models, and you can 3D, you can look around them in 3D and so on.
That is so cool.
So it was a preview into what we would do with Bionicle, taking the bricks into 3D and actually making the product shots in 3D.
That's amazing. And then seeing all of the concept work that went into Bionicle and crafting what you're trying to make, it's just nothing short of incredible.
There's like so many sketches, scanning all these and making them available is definitely one of the...
That's the goal.
That's a dream of getting it out there to show the creative process. It's a lot of sketches, and then
Well, that's why I'm here. But speaking of Ghost, they actually also animated, as we know, the Hero Factory Invasion from Below.
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of brings us into some more of the modern involvement that you had with some recent Lego themes.
Yeah.
I think obviously when Bionicle was wrapping up, there were a lot of explorations as to where to go next with the construction theme. But before we get into Hero Factory, I want to talk about another theme that came out kind of around the same time, which was Lego Friends. And not a lot of people know, but you had a lot of involvement in Lego Friends. You crafted the lore behind Lego Friends, behind Heart Lake City, why it's shaped like a heart. I don't know if that's ever been told, so if you don't mind jumping into what was the original backstory and lore behind Lego Friends.
Again, I want to say this is a big team.
Of course.
I don't want to take full credit of anything of that, because it's both Lego and it's research. 4 years of research went into Lego Friends. So having this group of girls and having to do this real-time story about them and their environment and so on, we wanted to build this great city that was both. It should both be sort of cozy and sort of secure and safe, but then you had all the world around. You would have this map of the city, and you would have the lake.
Right.
And every part of the city has a story attached to it.
So what was your exact involvement in Lego Friends? Obviously, it was a massive enterprise, a huge team. What did you have, well, I guess what influence did you have over that world, over that team?
I think actually conceptualizing together with Lego, this group of growing up female and girls in this city, sort of real time almost. This could be your friends almost. And we wanted people to sort of, you were the sixth friend almost. You should be part of this group, and they had this, treehouse where they met up, and everything was sort of creative, and they were helping around the city with the creative ideas, and they had each their own field of interest.
Right.
So they could actually sort of show the others how to care for animals, or how to sort of think about science, or how to be fascinated by movies and so on.
Exactly. And you told me there was a bit of lore behind the Heart Lake City, why it was shaped like a heart. Can we talk about that? Because I'd love to hear more about where that idea came from.
There is a heart-shaped lake in there, and we had this sort of lore that this was from the really sort of origin of the city. There was actually a fountain coming out of the rock face, filling this heart lake shape. And the story was that there was a cave behind it where once there was a dragon living in there, and there was actually there was some kind of a knight that went in there to sort of fight the dragon. And there was a princess who was in love with the knight, and the prince never came back. So it was almost like this shape symbolizes both her sort of
her heart kind of went into that cave.
It went into that cave, and the whole myth about the dragon and the prince that was sort of, she was waiting for the prince still to come back. So there's also a bit of a ghost story in there, and there's some mystery about, almost like Harry Potter, like sort of, is there sort of something happening in the woods that has maybe more story to it? And there was a Heart Lake Castle on top of the hill as well that we played around it that should also have a story. But this was to give this whole, we wanted the city to feel like it was ancient. It had been there for many years. And I think many of the cities with long stories, they have this kind of origin that comes out of myth and so on. So we wanted to create that.
That is so interesting, because I don't know if that lore was ever really delved into with the Friends lineup, but I know that you had spoken to me about Lego trying to explore Lego Friends being a jumping off point for girl-oriented themes. And you had talked about making kind of like a castle-focused Friends line, and an Egyptian-focused Friends line, and a space one. But where exactly did all of those ideas kind of end up going? Because I know there were a lot of ideas swirling around on how do we evolve the Lego Friends and girl-oriented branding.
Let's just say a lot of visuals, and just to say, I think they're still somewhere in the creative departments around, and I think maybe they're shaping stuff, or they are sort of pushing boundaries, or they have sort of been seen by people that are taking them further. That's the way creativity works. It's like
what's really cool
hints.
is even this year in 2024, Lego Friends went to space, and we had a Lego Friends rover and a space base. So it's awesome kind of seeing those original ideas of where can we take the girl-oriented themes next, it's still coming to fruition 10 years down the line.
But I think the whole thing about giving the girls the same sort of perspective of anything is possible. You can become anything. You can move from the past to the present to the future in a storytelling way, and you can build this modular thing, giving the girls that empowerment as well that the boys has had for so many years.
Yeah.
We can take that sort of to any kind of theme, and then add this, this extra flavor we need to attract the girls.
That's awesome. I mean, it is so cool just how much thought went into building out that universe. But I guess stepping away from Friends a bit, I want to talk about another of the universes that you built out for LEGO, which of course was Hero Factory.
Oh yeah.
And Hero Factory came directly after Bionicle, and it was kind of this completely new building system. It was a completely new theme, but there's so much that went into the concepts of Hero Factory.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about the ideation process of how do you follow up Bionicle, right? Like, how do you go from something that big? I mean, it's impossible, but you did try, and I'm so curious about what went into that theme.
I can tell you that there was so many attempts to know how can we do something that's just as legendary, just as amazing, big scale than Bionicle. And the funny thing about Bionicle is it's both micro and it's both you have the small heroes inside the body, but it's also like a universe on its own. So we were trying to sort of cover all those bases. So we had the suggestion to go something completely different, to go a bit more humorous, to go real time, to go like contemporary. So we would have this cityscape, we would have still the heroes, but they had a totally new role, and we would be a bit more sort of, we call it actually, we wanted to create a real-time property, a real-time IP. So this was almost like it was happening as we speak.
Right.
So you would be able
you had
to...
the hero hotline. You could literally call in and report villains attacking you.
Yeah, and you would order the hero you needed. So it was kind of making a bit fun of we need a hero, so just let's order one sort of to go.
But there was a lot more lore that you had come up with for Hero Factory that unfortunately we never really got to dive into.
No.
I know that even following Breakout, there was a plan for the Villain Factory, and that was a concept for Hero Factory 2013 that I saw a little bit of concept work done on your end for, but eventually they switched or pivoted over from the core stealers to the brains, and of course you had a lot of conceptual development behind that, and an invasion from below. But I think the thing that struck me the most was you had a lot of ties of how do we connect the Hero Factory story to Bionicle, but also what is the underlying secret behind the Hero Factory and this massive story engine of maybe what's underneath the Hero Factory. Can you talk a little bit about that initial concept exploration and how that manifested in the eventual line?
I remember many fans saying, you can't build a hero. A hero is something you earn your way to being a hero. It's by your actions and so on. So building a hero is like, it's really not moral. It's against what you have taught us with Bionicle.
Sure.
And this was also this is actually a comment on the sort of making a product and telling that what it is, but it has to go out and prove itself. So I think the whole thing about when you are powering up a hero, you have a byproduct. So you're actually also creating a villain at the same time, and we make it really physical because there's a pool of darkness underneath the factory, and we have those creatures crawling out of that, and Maguhiro, who's like Makuro, who's lead of the factory. Yeah, he knows this, but this is a really dark secret, and he always needs to be a hero ahead. Yeah, you need to be a step ahead on the good side. So he's keeping the balance, and he has a limited amount of hero cores. The Quasar. So he's selecting the Quasar for the heroes that are being built. He knows that it's not gonna last. He knows that this is coming to an end somewhere, and then all the badness will probably take over. So this is a race of time, but there is also a connection to Bionicle. Right. And this is probably it's been played with a lot. Yeah. But this is maybe a big spoiler, but just a little thought. Yeah. What if Hero Factory actually came before Bionicle? Or alongside, because what if Makuro is the 8th toa that never made it to Matanui.
That is fascinating, and I will let the viewers pull their own conclusions from that, because I think there's so much to explore there in those documents, and we got to keep some of it a mystery, of course. But
That's really important. That word is so important.
Oh, yeah.
For all toys and playing. Yeah.
always have to have the mystery. But I know with Hero Factory, you explored so many different concepts and environments. I saw there was a Western concept, a samurai concept, a whole underwater concept. And we did get a little bit of that in the early waves, where of course we had the second wave being fire focused and the third wave being jungle focused. But what made you pick those particular types of stories to tell versus some of the other concepts that you had, where I think the first concept you had was they landed on the Western world?
Yeah, I think it was it was still keeping it very elemental. I think to sort of still be a bit Bionicle, that elemental sort of law and so on, not going too crazy, because the Hero Factory sort of was really, we were trying out a lot of new stuff. So they were going to like the jungle planet, they were going to fire and so on. It was still elemental.
Yeah,
I think the idea was to take it further out. When we would sort of reach further down the line, but of course then things change and
of course
priority change, and then other themes comes in. So it's still in the, let's say, to be continued.
Still to be continued. And the cool thing about Hero Factory is, I mean, you could create your own stories from it. If you want to make that Western Hero Factory world, you can build that right now. And I know people have. I've seen a ton of incredible mocks out there of people who've done that. But I guess then moving on from Hero Factory, obviously there's so much to talk about. We didn't even touch on your work on Knight's Kingdom and the other construction bits and pieces. But I kind of want to have things go full circle as we wrap up this segment of the interview and talk about some of the latest work that you did for LEGO right before you kind of decided to work on your own projects. And that was creating ideas for something like Nexo Knights and LEGO Elves and some of that. Can you talk a little bit about some of the final work that you did for LEGO, of course culminating in the bit of work that you did for Bionicle Generation 2 before you wrapped up your tenure at the company?
Let's just say there was a lot of things happening there. There was, Lego Movie coming out in US, shaking everything up. This was possible to make a movie that just went like a hit. And we've been making Bionicle, direct to videos and so on. So the whole plan was to say, what can we do with this? So a lot of things were happening about, how to work together in different ways. We were working on Lego Mindstorms. I was part of that, the whole design process there as well. And Nexo Knight, so that was a lot about the look and feel, and also the logo, of course.
Yeah, back when it was still called Son of a Knight.
Yes, that's right. And also the Elves was also really logo focused and so on. But let's just say that I think the story had actually gotten its really big role also with Ninjago and so on. A lot of that energy that Bionicle created and that Ninjago just blew up in the biggest way. And Lego was starting to do their own content in a big way, producing stuff for Netflix and so on. And I just think that whole story had sort of, it had rooted itself in the Lego company. And I felt that I had to go and tell other stories.
Tell your own stories.
But still keeping the Lego and the modularity in mind. So that's what I've been working on since then, actually.
Well, actually, I think that's a perfect segue as we wrap up this interview. And thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk about just a snippet of everything that you've done. And we will be doing a separate video on this, because I know that's going to be a whole separate thing of itself with the golden Bionicle mask here. Can you tease a little bit of what are your future projects? And I know that we're working on some really exciting stuff together, but I'd love to hear you tell our audience about what are you building now? What kind of stories are you putting out there in the future? And can we expect maybe announcements soon about some of those future stories?
I've been hinting at it and I've been teasing it, and I know everybody's like, okay, what's happening? When is something
there have been a lot of teasers.
When do we have
we've been waiting for the content.
When do we have the next Cryoshell album and all this? And we're trying to get it out there.
And what is Rebel Nature?
Rebel Nature it's a combination of everything I've been doing, right from Star Wars. It's way back to Aquazone. But it's actually happening on the planet. It's here and now. It's in a few years, and it's taking everything from Bionicle. Bionicle was like a technical nature mixing up, but I was always lacking the human part, because the humans,
Right.
are they the great beings? Are they before, or will they come after? Now I want to see, can we mix the machines with the nature and then have the humans actually have a role?
Right.
And we have some big issues to solve on the planet.
Absolutely.
So why not play them out before we actually enter the actual problem? So play has always been about sort of predicting the future and training for the future. So I think we have a job to do to train for the future. And I think play and combination of all kinds of stuff, and actually mixing with the really important challenges we're facing, global goals, and much more of that, making it playable but relevant at the same time.
Well, I'm so excited, and I know that we jointly, as well as you, have some more concrete announcements coming out very soon about Rebel Nature, that taking shape, what exactly it is. So stay tuned for that, because we will have a lot more content coming out for you to be able to find out what really is Rebel Nature going to be. But I think that's a really great way to wrap this up.
I want to end that,
Yes.
we need to come together to solve these big problems. And I think Bionicle was a big training. It says, together we are strong. And this is what we need, the whole community and everybody needs to step up and be creative around this to create this next thing that hopefully can change, both our way of thinking and our way of playing, and tell some really great stories where everybody can get involved. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think that's about as good a time as to end this as any. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate it. And folks, let us know in the comments if you want to know more stories, more lore behind the many, many themes you developed, because obviously you touched almost every theme that LEGO put out over a certain amount of years, and it's incredible seeing the amount of influence you had over Aquazone, Friends, Snap. Scala was another theme that you built up from the ground up that we didn't even talk about Scala whatsoever, and there's just so much. So if you want a part 2 of this interview, do let us know. And actually what could be really helpful is if you have a question for Christian Faber, an absolute LEGO legend, put it down in the comments below, so next time maybe we can do a bit of a Q&A session and do a follow-up interview. So
That could be fun.
yeah.
I'm ready.
Thank you so much, man. This has been amazing, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
It's perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, I'll see you
See you
again
next
very
time.
soon, and bye for now.